So the first question becomes, how do we measure success? It is right now it's a test. If a student passes a test, then they had a successful education, and the test indicates then some magic way, which I disagree with, that we'll be more successful because our kids are passing tests. Um, this is ridiculous because the SATs, the SATs have been a long use. It's been a long standard used, benchmark, long used to measure how students will do in college, but the SATs don't measure that. It's been proven through data that, by and large, what predicts success in college more than anything else is what kind of car is sitting in your parents' driveway. That be meaning that it's some kind of social economic issue. Your parents, if you come from a family better off economically, they're more likely to invest in their children's education, read to their children when they're younger, etc. Support teachers, support local schools. Now, what this book and these movies are pointing out is that's not always the case. Actually, in the film Waiting for Superman, they use as one of the examples a school in California, I believe, that is a high testing school, but or it's a school in a wealthy district, or at least a well-to-do district that's not doing well. The kids aren't doing well in tests. So one of the stories that they follow is a girl, young teenage girl who goes to that school, who's still trying to get into a private school or to a charter school because her school stinks, even though it's a wealthy school, has state-of-the-art facilities, arts programs, everything. So it would seem by and large that all this data is showing that there is more to success in schools than money, and that good schools can be produced on a smaller budget. And that's what's really the argument here that I'm just kind of sidestepping for now. That it's really a whole other argument, is the role unions play. The role of unions is a strong underlying theme in both the book and the movies. That unions have protect bad teachers, and those bad teachers could care less about kids. And the book specifically points out situations where things like Teach for America, these alternative ways to get licensure to be a teacher, prove that you don't have to go to a fancy teacher's college and have methods courses and things like that. Yet the one thing they point out the whole way through these productions are how these teachers are willing to stay up to 1 o'clock in the morning every night working on bulletin boards and things like that. And I argue that they would have to stay up to 1 o'clock in the morning if they actually learned how to teach in college instead of through a 6-week course to get emergency licensure through Teach for America. In any event, I should point out now, I think I've failed to do that so far, this all seems to be focused on elementary education. And I think there's a reason for that. All the charter schools they talk about in the textbook, in this book, and in the films, they're all elementary schools. Where this idea that if good teachers can make learning exciting and fun, and the kids can sit on the floor or go to a nice facility instead of something that's run down, and because it's in a gang neighborhood or anything like that, that changes everything. But no one's talking about secondary education. And the other disclaimer I want to make is that the schools that are talked about in all these in the book and the two movies are like New York City, Washington D.C., and you all individually may never have to deal with some of the same issues in rural America, Midwestern America. But these do affect you because policy is made because of these large schools. As they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if the general consensus is, because you're watching a film on New York City schools or Washington, D.C. schools, or New Orleans schools, that doesn't affect you. It does, because No Child Left Behind was based on what was going on in Texas. So you just can't ignore these things going on. So back to our issue at hand here. What should be the role of the schools? Is it the teacher's job to make people successful? And what does success mean? In some ways, success should be, how you can only measure that by going and visiting with students, say 10 years later. Are they happily married? Are they contributing to society? They don't have to be rich, but are they in abusive relationships? I don't know. How do you measure success? And what does passing a test have to do with any of that? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys will have different points of view and think tests are important. But there's a strange formula here that success is indicated by passing a test, and I'm arguing that that is not a true indicator of success. And it's almost impossible to define success, as I'm saying. If we go and look at all my students I've had in my 10 years, if they were all to be divorced, have declared bankruptcy, foreclosed on their mortgages, does that mean I didn't do my job? Or is the opposite even true then? That because they're all successful in happy relationships, paying their taxes, doing all these great things, does that mean I was successful in my job? I don't know if that's necessarily true in either account, because there's so many other factors involved. Yet, the indication through this book and these movies is that if somebody fails, and then keep in mind this means economic failure, as defined by the book and the two movies. If someone fails, if a neighborhood fails, if a city is failing because of its schools, if our country can't keep up with India or China, it's our fault. It is education's fault, because education is supposed to be an equalizer. Now, I think that's true to some extent. But again, if it seems like I'm babbling, I apologize. But the issue here is this is a much more complex thing to measure than people would have us believe. And it's a sense that, I think schools get blamed. Personally, my bias is I think schools get blamed to cover the imperfections of capitalism. I'm not a communist by any sense of the word, but I think there are problems with capitalism. Capitalism is based on the fact that you try to collect as much money and funding and goods and resources, more so than other people can. That's what drives our economy. But there are problems with that issue, and I think blaming education is a shell game. It's kind of a magician trick. Look over here so you don't see what the other hand is doing down below the screen here, because I have you directed up here. Look at schools. Schools are failing, but down here, what is hidden is that we live in an imperfect economic system. I don't know which system would be better. I don't have all the answers, but we have rampant poverty, and schools can't fix all that. We have violence. We have a culture that displays violence as glorified. We have a culture that glorifies the anti-school message, that it's bad to be a geek. People would rather be Michael Jordan than Bill Gates, except for the money. But the point here is it's a much more complex thing. So am I just babbling on crazy, or is there something to this? This is what I want your discussion posts to be, and you can certainly ask me to clarify any questions. All right? Thank you.